The following podcast contains strong language and adult themes that may not be suitable for all audiences.
I'm Daniel Ennett. I'm a four-limb amputee and a power wheelchair user. And this is Frederick Croach. We're the directors of Crip Trip.
It's Danny and Fred. They're the Crip Trip Podcast.
Another day on the set of Crip Trip, and today we are
Interviewing Jim Lebrecht of Crip Camp fame.
the guy who made it okay for us to call our show Crip Trip. So again, we're in Barstow, and our van's been acting up. It's been a long trip, and we're sad we couldn't meet you in San Francisco.
Well, I really was looking forward to it, but as these things go, I was not doing too good. And so anyway, I've been taking better care of myself, and through the miracle of modern medicine and chemicals, I am doing a lot better. So I'm glad to be here with y'all, and maybe in season 3.
Ooh, I like that. Yes.
That's a good bit of foreshadowing.
Can I start and ask? Did you ever get a chance to watch any of Crip Trip? And if you did, any thoughts?
I watched a little bit here and there, but what really blew my mind was your trailer. And I thought, and look, the trailer, yes, there is humor, but there is real there,
Yeah.
And I think so. This is one of the reasons I'm just really enthused that you wanted to talk with me and that we could talk together. Because there's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff, but you guys are doing it in a way that I think that we need, let alone being entertaining. This show is not just for the disabled, but if you are disabled adjacent, you will definitely like it.
Well,
or if you don't give us, or if you think we're burdens to society, then you're really gonna like it.
Well, and that's the beauty of Fred, is that it gives people an easy in, to start from a place of needing to learn things, and that's something that we were really trying to accomplish on the trip for sure.
But hearing you talk about Crip Trip is such an honor because you're a big inspiration. I hate the word inspiration.
Yeah, it's so charged.
But you're the reason we got to call it Crip Trip. You allowed this word to get out there, and it's one of those things that came up with our broadcaster was like, can we use this word? And was like, well, Jim did it.
Well, you could imagine the conversation that Nicole and we made Crip Camp together, the conversation we had with Netflix about that.
Yeah.
But I really think, and I'm going to just adjust Mr. Microphone there. The reason that all of us are able to really use that is Alice Wong.
Mm-hmm.
And Alice really, who passed away less than 24 hours ago. And those that don't know Alice, you need to go out and just do a search online. But Alice she was called the Cyborg Oracle in the disabled community. And for years had a podcast called the Disability Visibility Project. And she and a couple of other folks, and please forgive me for not mentioning their names, kind of coined the term Crip the Vote. And it was a hashtag. And so many things I think that we may be grateful for or appreciate about our lives, and those of us who have disabilities who really identify culturally as disabled owe a great deal to Alice and her writing and her books and her advocacy and her joie de vivre.
Absolutely.
So
I still have Disability Intimacy sitting on my bookshelf. I've been meaning to pick it up.
Maybe there could be like a episode 5 dedicated to Alice Wong or something like that.
Yeah. When we were coming through San Fran and looking at the Disability Cultural Center and stuff like that.
That was very eye-opening. In what might have been the most expensive per square foot real estate in the world, to have a disability cultural center smack dab in the middle, I was kind of like, what? The government paid for this?
Yeah, and just the amount of political will that needs to be built up there. Like, you can tell that there's something fundamentally different about the culture there, right? Where empowering people, it being right across the street from the 504 sit-in, you know?
I think a good start to this conversation would be, if you don't mind, Jim, giving a little bit of your background in the industry and a little bit about Crip Camp, just for people who are tuning in that don't know your backstory. I think a little bit, that'd be a fun way to start this.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. So, where do I begin? I have been working as a sound designer since the late 70s, and I started out working in the theater, and I was fortunate enough to get this job at the Berkeley Repertory Theater, which is back then and to this day considered one of the great regional theaters, as their sound designer, and held that job for about 10 years. Moved into film in Berkeley. There was the Saul Zaentz Film Center. Saul produced The English Patient, Unbearable Lightness of Being, Amadeus, and I found out there's a whole post facility there, and I really wanted to move into doing sound for film. And I was able to break in on some of the crews there, and kind of worked my way up. And through that, I decided that, here's the deal. I think a lot of us with disabilities, if we're fortunate enough to have a job, what do we do on these days in which our bodies might tell us we're not going to work that day?
Yeah.
Right? Will you get fired? Will people understand? And perhaps at certain companies, and today versus 20, 25 years ago, it's better. But I kind of had a feeling that if I really, let's say, worked my way up, either up at Skywalker Sound or, at Saul Zaentz, that, if I wasn't able to show up for a final mix one day because my body exploded, what was going to happen? Now, and I think that all of us also, to an extent, want a certain amount of control in our lives. There are so many things coming at us that we have to kind of, balance or dodge or deal with, that I decided to start my own business.
Yeah. And that's kind of where we're landing as well, where it's there's something about the arts that attracts people with disabilities because of the amount of control that it gives you over your schedule. And that's something I've definitely found, as much as it comes with burnout and how hard it is, right? It also gives you a certain degree of freedom.
Well, it does. I also had worked at a very high level in theater, working with these incredible internationally known directors. And so I decided that I really wanted to work with the documentary community. And there was a number of people who were documentarians right in the building there. So I rented my own office and started setting up my own facility. And I've had this wonderful career in film, but one of the people that was actually one of my first documentary clients was Nicole. And if we go back like 10 years ago, I had asked Nicole to go out to lunch with me. I had mixed 3 of her films. We had become good friends. And I had really wanted to try to see how we could get certain films made that really speak to the lived experience of disability. And I loved her as a filmmaker. So I she was wrapping up a film of hers called Revolutionary Optimists, and I pitched her some ideas like, gee, Nicole, I'd really like to see a documentary about non-disabled siblings. And I know, that I learned my sister was holding on to a certain amount of emotions that I felt like, hey, you know what, please. But sheepishly, I had said to her, I've actually always wanted to see a documentary about my summer camp. And I believe there was a good story there of all of these disabled folks from New York moving out to Berkeley. Yeah. But I knew these people from Camp Jeanette, and I'll make a long story short. I told her to go look at these photographs that were on a Facebook page for Camp Jeanette, and she contacted me and says, I can't, I'm like, Jim, I'm like going down this rabbit hole. I can't believe these photos. And we talked about what it was like and my belief that we really did have connection to the disability rights movement. And she said, I'm in, but we should make it together. And what happened there is we really forged this really great collaboration. Yeah. And it was really in a trust and really a lot of trust. She had made all these great films, and although I had mixed a ton of them, I never was there at the process. Yeah. How do you hire a composer? How do you hire an editor? And so basically, just what I want to say is that that was the key. And I literally somehow my telephone number is out there. I get a call today from somebody like in Georgia, and this person says, yeah, I learned about Forward Doc, and Forward Doc is this nonprofit that I helped found with a bunch of people that supports disabled documentarians and such. And I want to make a documentary. And it's okay. Yeah. So, and okay. And so, I appreciated that it took a bit for someone to call, and I just said, you got to find community, and you got to find other people that are going to be want to do this work. And so, and I think I'm saying "and so" a lot. I think that's always been the key. I think the key is, especially at this point in time where here in America, we are getting hosed left and right.
By policy, yeah.
Yes. And that, and it's like a double whammy because, defunding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting has this domino effect that is affecting all these other organizations who have funded and distributed documentaries. And we've had this wonderful period of time over the last 8 to 10 years of great documentaries winding up on public broadcasting, on Independent Lens, on POV. And that organizations like, Sundance and such have shown our films. Yeah. And, people like Reed Davenport, who has just been kicking ass for years now, just had a premiere on I think it's on POV of his documentary about assisted suicide called Life After. And that film is just like, that is a hot button topic, or hot topic anyway, in our community. Good documentaries, good filmmakers take on tough subjects, and they show us. I think that they allow us to really, really think and understand. Yeah. And Reed's film, I Didn't See You There. This one, Life After, really allows us to really think, and think about things that we haven't had an opportunity maybe to think about in such a specific manner. but I mean, Reed is just one example. And so I just was joking, it's like it's a bad time to be a disabled documentarian,
Don't tell me that.
Well, what can I say? But you guys have this really good. Hey, you've got a second season. You got a good track record. You got compelling material, and look, it's tough out there. Even before the demise of, or funding for public television,
Mm-hmm.
there are the streamers. There are people like Netflix or, Hulu or Peacock, and that Amazon. That it's just hard to get stuff on their platforms.
Yeah.
I mean, Crip Camp, we were really fortunate. We connected with the Obama's Higher Ground production, and they had a deal with Netflix. I mean, Netflix wouldn't have taken it if they didn't believe it, but they thought that Nicole and I had a great film, and so did the Obamas. So,
I mean, one of the most interesting aspects of that was the amount of archival that you had in Crip Camp. Just the amount of beautiful substantiating footage of like just the community finding each other. That's one thing that really stood out to me about Crip Camp. And it's really, kind of validating to hear you say all of these things about people like Reed Davenport, who was a mentor of mine in the Hot Docs accelerator program. And one thing he said in his film, I Didn't See You There, was he felt like filmmaking chose him because of how hard it was to pick like a regular or hold a regular 9-to-5 job because of exactly what you're saying. Do you think there's something about disability that is attracted to the arts as maybe a more accessible way to work and control your schedule?
I think that there's a lot of, and you kind of inferred this, that there's a lot you wind up doing by yourself. Mm-hmm. On your own hours, on your own terms, in the world of the arts. Certainly, being a painter or a writer or a musician, that is the case. My starting out in theater, I've always felt like theater was a home for wayward children. Yeah. Even if you're 70, it's just, and people who want to play.
Yeah.
And for me, even in my work as a mixer, I just felt like I'm collaborating with these filmmakers who've been working on their documentaries for 5 to 10 years. And I just want to get in there and till the soil and consider ideas and just really add what I know. And sometimes what I know about sound mixing or sound for a film is the less you do, the better. Mm-hmm. But it's just having that breadth of knowledge. Often people don't know how to use sound in their films or just are not that well versed in it. And that part of my job isn't to tell them what to do, is to give them options and help them make an educated decision. So I do think that I think there's something there, and I think that I'm kind of answering what I think an answer is, but I think it's a really deep question, to be honest with you. Yeah. Really, why are we attracted to the arts? And I will say one other thing. I think that for a lot of us, especially with obvious unhidden disabilities, not hidden disabilities, is that it's hard for our voices to be heard. It is easy with the stereotypes that still exist to this day around disability, how people might take us seriously, or how people are look at our disability, not the person, not what we're saying or not what we're expressing, especially at first blush.
Yeah.
So
And have you seen attitudes change over your tenure working in documentary or even disability related content?
well, yeah, yeah. So like one of the organizations that has received a lot of money from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting is ITVS. And ITVS really feeds a great deal of films to independent lens and to POV on public television. And as it turns out, when this clawback of money was happening, we just did there was a little research done. And basically, ITVS over, let's say, the last 10 years or so, has helped to get like somewhere around 70 documentaries that deal with disability on the air. And so that's wonderful. And we're starting to see certain things kind of showing up, like on Netflix, Love on the Spectrum, and also Special by Ryan. Now I'm going to kill myself. And anyway. Oh,
But yeah, a proliferation of content in the sphere. And how do you feel about? Yeah,
I mean, you see my I gotta remember everybody's name, and Ryan O'Connell's. Okay, thank you. So we are seeing that. I'm sorry, I was so flustered. What did you just say?
no, it's but yeah, you see a rapid proliferation of the content, right? And how do you feel about shows like Love on the Spectrum? Do you think it's a gimmick? Do you think it's good representation? Do you think it's a healthy step in the right direction?
I haven't watched a lot of it, to be honest with you, but I think that it's been really. I think that one could point to that show as having done a lot of good in opening minds about folks who are on the autistic spectrum.
Yeah.
And so I think that's very, very, very helpful. I think that if we were in the middle of a marathon about which disability is getting the most exposure in media right now, autism is really right at the top of the pack there, like Usain Bolt. And well, dwarfism is in the back here, but they're kind of coming up.
Yeah.
So Julie Wyman, who's a good friend of mine, has this great documentary, The Tallest Dwarf, and it's just, it's really just fantastic. And so yes, I think all of these kind of, but also like what is it, The Sex Lives of College Girls, and Lola Spencer being on that, and there's other films where there are characters with disabilities there. Again, it is not like this centered documentary about the struggle, and God help us, it's like
an aspect of their person.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if our broadcaster who's helping us make Crip Trip would have Love on the Spectrum on their channel. I think they'd probably talk about tokenization and maybe say that's maybe not a show for them.
I mean, it's interesting to watch how the zeitgeist is changing, whether it's an aspect of something or in the very kind of UK model of it, it's a piece of a character, and it's usually brushed past pretty quickly, right? And yeah, there's very different places, in the zeitgeist, and I think something Fred and I are thinking a lot about is, entertainment and information. And I'm always thinking about how I can radicalize and propagandize our audience. And Fred is keeping me on the straight and narrow and making sure that we're being entertaining enough to make sure that a message has the opportunity to sink in. I read your CV, and I'm seeing things like, The Road Ahead with Sam and Dan Habib. Is that correct?
Yeah, right.
Where it's a road trip, and they're trying to show.
Did you work on that?
How they're adapting?
Yeah, my wife Sarah and I have been EPs, executive producers on that, and really kind of been in touch with Dan for a long time, and even with the op doc that they had, which was my disability roadmap that led to the Right Ahead.
Yeah.
No, so we've been, so I was. There are some executive producers that are not hands-on, and just kind of lend a name, and I've been in that position in the past, but I really love digging into it with the film team. And so that was one of them. And that film, The Right Ahead, where Samuel goes kind of around the country on this road trip with his dad and really talking to mentors about being a young man of 20 and, dating and all these other things, and
trying to move out and make it work. And it's very kind of analogous to even my situation, right? Where it's we're trying to find how people are even attempting to make it work, right? And highlighting those systemic struggles that everyone seems to be engaged with, but the frequent refrain that I hear from able-bodied people is, I wasn't aware it was that bad.
Well, so Danny gets 6 hours a day from the government for care work. He clearly needs 24. You're getting older. You're not getting younger. You're not getting less disabled.
Familial care work's deteriorating. Right?
And it's like, what do we do? And should you have even gotten messed up in documentary? Should you have gotten your master's and pursued something academic? I don't know. I'm worried about the longevity of our art form now with AI and all this stuff coming out. I'm a little, in the streaming wars and all this, I'm a little terrified about where are you in 20 years in the industry? Like, do you have any thoughts or advice on, relative, I guess you're not new to the industry. You've been in it about 10 years, but this is our first TV show. Mm-hmm. Any words of advice on a career path like that for somebody very severely disabled?
I think that we're still on this upward trajectory. Mm-hmm. I think that every time something really good surfaces, it makes it a little easier to at least get a pitch meeting or to get things produced. I've been developing a RomCom with my writing partner for a number of years and have had some really positive response to the pilot, but never got terribly far. At the moment, knock on wood, I met a producer who absolutely loves it and wants to bring it to market. And this has felt like the closest we've gotten to maybe actually getting a green light. Knock on wood. So, check in with me in a few months to see where things have gone. But I think also one could look to England and the BBC. Yeah. Kyla Harris has a show called We Might Regret This. And that is incredibly funny, incredibly with real heart and this wonderful disability lived experience. And it got picked up for a second, and it might have been a second and third season, but she's stars in it. She's a producer. She's writing it. And that show is so freaking good. And I would love to believe that even though it's on the BBC, that can come over here and help open up minds. And look, it's the executives. Yeah. It's the executives at these places that make the decision. But how do we get our people into those C-suites? What are the ways that people work their way up in the industry? And, these are the things that places like the Forward Doc or this other organization that's so wonderful, the 1 in 4 Coalition, have been doing, is really trying to educate studios and streamers. My friend Terry Hartman Squires are doing a lot of great work in Los Angeles with certain networks around really trying to get people employed. And I'm look, I'm not being idiotic, or let me rephrase that. I don't think I'm being unrealistically optimistic is really what I wanted to try to say, that things will get better.
If your RomCom goes though, and you need a behind the scenes crew, we'll come and we'll bring our own behind the scenes crew to film our behind the scenes.
Oh no, wait. But you guys have to understand something. I'm not going to pay you because it'll be good for the community.
Exactly.
And so you should just expect to work for free, and let me rip you off as best I can.
This is documentary, baby. I'm used to.
Oh my God.
But I'm totally serious. We'll be there in a heartbeat.
I could tell. But look, let me tell you, it's like, I was on the set of the biopic of that's being made about Judy Heumann up in Toronto, and the behind the scenes people, was a couple, and Ashley Eakin is disabled, and there was an attempt to get disabled folks working on the film in all sorts of different positions.
Awesome.
I don't think that the numbers were reflective of our numbers in society, but I also think that it's not that they didn't try as much as
We're still professionalizing a demographic.
building up our experiences and our, resumes so that we can get these positions.
Yeah.
And so I maintain that any kind of program that a studio or whoever organization has done that has helped to lift up people who've been marginalized can apply that same thing to our community. And that it should have been done probably. I mean, it's starting to happen. I'm not in touch with everything that's going on in the world, but if you look at entry-level positions, they want PAs, production assistants, who can work 16 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly.
And who can carry 12 lattes and a bag of chips in their teeth,
And that's the usual starting point, right? But it's like, how do you get?
You've got a
disabled
built-in tray. You could carry like 40 lattes.
This
Like
is
you
true.
could be a super PA.
So it's become a little bit of a joke between us that my tray is pretty unstable when I carry liquids on it. So now we use it as a measure of how accessible an area is by how long I can keep coffee on my tray for without it falling out.
Vancouver, we just made it from getting off the airplane to 1 block of our hotel downtown without spilling a drop.
And I was like, that's an accessible city.
On the train.
Took a train with exposed coffee. It was a masterclass.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, look, I loved. I transitioned into being a power chair user.
Nice. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, thank you. And gosh, how long ago was that now? It was a bit over 10 years. And look, going around the corner to get a cup of coffee, and you could tell I'm from New York originally because I say coffee. Sometimes I was carrying like it in my teeth or something and rolling because like I didn't have a cup holder in my manual chair. Or, I don't know whatever. But when I got a push chair, it was like, hey, I'm just like zipping around town. Hey, it's just, and like being at a party and in this quantum, edge 3 that the seat goes up and down, getting up to face level with everybody else and being able to move with that martini or Manhattan,
But try to find an accessible cab in Weyburn, Saskatchewan. And sometimes you'd be waiting a few weeks.
Yeah.
Well, look, and sometimes, Uber's accessible vans are more reliable in certain cities than they are in others.
Yeah.
And, what do? It's, gentlemen, I know. It's screwed.
So, do you have any advice for me as a burgeoning disabled filmmaker, or general advice? I know you gave a great piece that I've given to people before, which is find your community and collaborate a lot.
But it also sounds like you had this incredible experience also of spending a life working in theater and sound, and you developed like a technical craft, and then later on began working creatively in documentary like that. But it sounds like you firmly established yourself with something that paid good money and was a necessary role on other people's films. I'm just curious, is that a takeaway? Are there any tasks that you can do that isn't just like producing or starring in a film, working on somebody as a consultant or a writer? Like, I feel like there's something there that there's a takeaway there, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because like it's your credits were like 145 films or something you've worked on.
Yeah, I was a bit more than that, but who's talking? Yeah, I mean, I very, very occasionally would like act as a producer on my friend's short film, with no budget, and try to want to be a extra in a film in town just to have that experience and such. But I do believe in tenacity. I do believe in just kind of keeping going. I think that there is definitely name recognition for Crip Trip within our community.
Well, thank you.
Wait, for Crip Trip?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I mentioned that I was going to meet with you guys, and, there are certain people, who do kind of have their, I don't know, fingers on the pulse of...
Did everybody in the room hear that? Hey.
You patted him on the head while the baby's awake. That's dangerous.
It's great to hear something like that from someone like you in a community like where you are. We sometimes feel kind of isolated up in Edmonton.
Yeah, it's very, very divorced from community. I mean, going down through the States and during both seasons during the trip, right, seeing Minneapolis, a very kind of firm organizing scene with like a huge group and demographic that gets together quite often. Very different than being in a smaller town in Canada where it's, winter for 7 months out of the year. So like, we don't have the established kind of connections of like going and meeting other disabled people. As
we had to make a TV show and get TV funding to do a trip like this.
Yeah.
It's sort of like
one of the fundamental absurdities of it all, right?
Yeah.
Well, this network that you're on, it's really wonderful that it does exist.
I hope we can find a way to work together in the future. I think that'd be great.
I think that would be really freaking awesome. And look, I really like Canada. I mean, I've been there a little bit I've been in Toronto a couple of times, and I just, I've always just liked it a lot.
Well, if you're ever looking for an excuse to be a little cooler, well, we'll host you. That's for sure.
Edmonton is the cultural epicenter of North America, and it's great. We have a mall and a hockey team. It's awesome.
Hey, right on, man. Well, I like malls because they're usually pretty flat and they have
Yes.
It's a big mall.
Honest to gosh.
Gosh darn.
Thank you for reaching out to me, and I'm really glad that we could circle back in this way.
Absolutely. So am I.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
AMI Plus, TELUS Fund, TVO, a Catapult Pictures production.